Hello friends, welcome to the session on attitude and job satisfaction. Let me introduce you to the topic. Friends, when we are feeling good, there is hardly anything better. But when we are feeling down, it takes a toll on us and possibly others. This is happening due to our emotions, attitudes and job satisfaction. Attitudes are evaluative statements, either favorable or unfavorable, concerning objects, people, or events. It reflects how one feels about something. Attitude tends to result in behavior or action. It refers to feelings and beliefs of individuals or groups of individuals. All people, irrespective of their status or intelligence, hold attitudes. A person can have 1,000 types of attitudes, but organizational behavior focuses our attention on the job-related attitudes. These job-related attitudes tap positive or negative evaluation that employees hold about aspects of their work environment. Most of research in organization behavior has been concerned with three types of attitudes, which involves job satisfaction, job involvement and organizational commitment. Friends, this session focuses upon the concept of attitude and job satisfaction in general. Also, it focuses upon the impact of satisfied employees on workplace. Now let us see the objectives of the session. Friends, after studying this chapter, you will be able to understand the concept of attitudes and its components. You will be able to summarize the relationship between attitudes and behavior and compare the major job attitudes. You will be able to define job satisfaction and show how it can be measured. You will be able to summarize the impact of satisfied employees on workplace, and you will be able to compare the job satisfaction amongst Indian employees with other cultures. Now let us understand meaning of attitude. Attitudes are evaluative statements that are either favorable or unfavorable concerning objects, people or events. Attitudes are not the same as values, but the two are interrelated. They respond one's feelings either favorably or unfavorably to persons, objects or events. Attitudes reflect how one feels about something. For example, if a teacher says, "I like teaching," he or she is expressing attitude about the work. Thus, attitudes are related to feelings and beliefs of people. Attitudes affect behavior either positively or negatively. Attitude undergo changes. Attitude respond to persons, objects or events. Attitude affect perception and in turn behavior. This underlines the need for managers to understand different type of attitudes and their formation, how attitudes are measured and causes of changes in attitude. Friends, now let us try to look into main components of attitudes. Basically, there are three components of an attitude. First is cognitive component. Cognitive component involves the belief or knowledge of a person. This base knowledge is usually objective and without any emotional element. For example, a person might know that McDonald's is a fast food restaurant that operates in thousands of locations throughout the world. As you can see, this is simply base information or knowledge without any particular viewpoint in regards to McDonald's. Second is affective component. The affective component of an attitude relates to some form of judgment, or positive or negative evaluation of the object, person, task or brand. A good way to remember this component is from the word affection, but consider that the view can be positive or negative. Using our McDonald's example again, the same person as above may consider that McDonald's food is convenient and provides good value for money. This is the affective component of an attitude, as it suggests some form of evaluation. Contrast this against another person who may dislike the taste of McDonald's food and generally dislike their facilities. Third is behavioral component. The third component of an attitude is the behavioral component. As suggested by the name, this is the person's behavior relative to the subject of the overall attitude. For example, the employee is looking for another job. In organizations, attitudes are important because of the behavioral component. Using a McDonald's example yet again, there are some people who would frequently visit McDonald's, others who go occasionally, and others who would never go to McDonald's. Obviously, the behavioral component is interrelated to the affective and cognitive aspects of person's attitude. Now, let us try to look into how consistent are attitudes. People sometimes change what they say, so it does not contradict what they do. Research has generally concluded that people seek consistency among their attitudes and their behavior. Individuals seek to reconcile divergent attitudes and align their attitudes and behavior so they appear rational and consistent. Friends, when there is an inconsistency, forces are initiated to return the individual to an equilibrium state where attitudes and behavior are again consistent by altering either the attitudes or the behavior, or by developing a rationalization for the discrepancy. Now, let us try to look into major job attitudes. Friends, organization behavior focuses our attention on a very limited number of job related attitudes. Most of the research in organization behavior has been concerned with three attitudes: job satisfaction, job involvement, and organizational commitment. Let us understand what is job satisfaction. It refers to a collection of feelings that an individual holds towards his or her job. It refers to an individual's general attitude towards a job. A high level of job satisfaction equals positive attitudes toward the job and vice versa. Employees' attitudes and job satisfaction are frequently used interchangeably. Often when people speak of employee attitudes, they mean employee job satisfaction. Second is job involvement. The measure of the degree to which a person identifies psychologically with his or her job and considers his or her perceived performance level important to self-worth. Employees with high levels of job involvement are thought to result in fewer absences and lower resignation rates. Job involvement more consistently predicts turnover than absenteeism. And the third is organizational commitment. Friends, it is a state in which employee identifies with a particular organization and its goals. High job involvement means identifying with one's specific job with high organizational commitment, means identifying with one's employing organization. Now, let us understand what is affective commitment. emotional attachment to the organization and belief in its values. Continuous commitment is value of remaining with an organization compared to alternatives, and normative commitment is obligation to remain with the organization for moral or ethical reasons. Friends, research evidence demonstrates negative relationship between organizational commitment and both absenteeism and turnover. An individual's level of organizational commitment is a better indicator of turnover than the far more frequently used job satisfaction predictor, because it is a more global and enduring response to the organization as a whole than is the job satisfaction. Organizational commitment is probably less important as a job related attitude than it once was, because the unwritten loyalty contract in place when this research was conducted is no longer in place. Now, let us see how to measure employee attitude. Friends, the most popular method for getting information about employees' attitude is through attitude surveys. Using attitude surveys on a regular basis provides managers with valuable feedback on how employees perceive their working conditions. Managers present the employee with set statements or questions to obtain specific information. Policies and practices that management views as objective and fair may be seen as inequitable by employees in general or by certain groups of employees, and can lead to negative attitudes about the job and the organization. Now, let us see how to change attitudes. Can you change unfavorable employee attitudes? Sometimes it depends on who you are, the strength of the employee's attitude, the magnitude of the change, and the technique you choose to try to change the attitude. People are most likely to respond to changes suggested by someone who is liked, credible, and convincing. If people like you, they are more apt to identify and adopt your message. Credibility implies trust, expertise, and objectivity. Finally, successful attitude change is enhanced when you present your arguments clearly and persuasively. Friends, it's easier to change a person's attitude if he or she is not strongly committed to it. Conversely, the stronger the belief in the attitude, the harder it is to change it. Also, attitudes that have been expressed publicly are more difficult to change because doing so requires admitting having made a mistake. It's also easier to change attitudes when the change required is not very significant. To get a person to accept a new attitude that varies greatly from his or her current position requires more effort. Friends, it may also threaten other deeply held attitudes. All attitude change techniques are not equally effective across situations. Oral persuasion techniques are most effective when you use positive, tactful tone, present strong evidence to support your position, tailor your argument to the listener, use logic, and support your evidence by appealing to the person's fears, frustrations, and other emotions. But people are more likely to embrace change when they can experience it. Now, let us see measuring job satisfaction. Friends, job satisfaction is an individual's general attitude towards his or her job. Job requires interaction with co-workers and bosses, following organizational rules and policies, meeting performance standards, living with working conditions that are often less than ideal, and the like. This means that an employee's assessment of how satisfied or dissatisfied he or she is with his or her job is a complex summation of a number of discrete job elements. The two most widely used approaches are a single global rating and a summation score made up of a number of job facets. The single global rating method is nothing more than asking individuals to respond to one question, such as, all things considered, how satisfied are you with your job? While the summation score method is made up of a number of job facets highlighting important points depending upon job description and requirements of job. Now, let us understand the impact of dissatisfied and satisfied employees on the workplace. Friends, there are a number of ways employees can express dissatisfaction. First is exit. Behavior directed toward leaving the organization, including looking for a new position as well as resigning. Second is voice, that is actively and constructively attempting to improve conditions, including suggesting improvements, discussing problems with the superiors, and some forms of union activity. Third is loyalty, that is passively but optimistically waiting for the conditions to improve, including speaking up for the organization in the face of external criticism and trusting the organization and its management to do the right thing. Fourth is neglect, that is passively allowing conditions to worsen, including chronic absenteeism or lateness, reduced effort, and increased error rate. Exit and neglect behaviors encompass our performance variables, that is productivity, absenteeism, and turnover. Friends, voice and loyalty are constructive behaviors, allow individuals to tolerate unpleasant situations or to revive satisfactory working conditions. It helps us to understand situations such as those sometimes found among unionized workers, where low job satisfaction is coupled with low turnover. Now, let us try to understand impact of job satisfaction on performance of employees. Friends, managers' interest in job satisfaction tends to center on its effect on employee performance. Much research has been done on the impact of job satisfaction on employees' job performance, absenteeism, and turnover. Let us look into job satisfaction and job performance. Friends, happy workers are not necessarily productive workers. The evidence suggests that productivity is likely to lead to the satisfaction. At the organization level, there is renewed support for the original satisfaction performance relationship. It seems organizations with more satisfied workers as a whole are more productive organizations. Now, job satisfaction and organization citizenship behavior. Friends, it seems logical to assume that job satisfaction should be a major determinant of an employee's organizational citizenship behavior. More recent evidence, however, suggests that satisfaction influences organizational citizenship behavior, but through perceptions of fairness. There is modest overall relationship between job satisfaction and organizational citizenship behavior. Basically, job satisfaction comes down to conceptions of fair outcomes, treatment, and procedures. When you trust your employer, you are more likely to engage in behaviors that go beyond your formal job requirements. Another point is job satisfaction and customer satisfaction. Friends, evidence indicates that satisfied employees increase customer satisfaction and loyalty. Customer retention and defection are highly dependent on how frontline employees deal with customers. Satisfied employees are more likely to be friendly, upbeat, and responsive. Customers appreciate that companies hire upbeat, friendly employees, train them in the importance of customer service, provide positive employee work climates, and regularly track employee satisfaction through attitude surveys. Next is job satisfaction and absenteeism. Friends, we find a consistent negative relationship between satisfaction and absenteeism. The more satisfied you are, the less likely you are to miss work. It makes sense that dissatisfied employees are more likely to miss work, but other factors have an impact on the relationship and reduce the correlation coefficient. For example, you might be a satisfied worker, yet still take a mental health day to head for the beach now and again. The next is job satisfaction and turnover. Friends, satisfaction is also negatively related to turnover, but the correlation is stronger than what we found for absenteeism. Other factors such as labor market conditions, expectations about alternative job opportunities, and length of tenure with the organization are important constraints on the actual decision to leave one's current job. Friends, evidence suggests and indicates that an important moderator of the satisfaction turnover relationship is the employee's level of performance. Other point is job satisfaction and workplace deviance. Friends, if employees don't like their work environment, they will respond somehow. Now let me summarize the session. Friends, managers should be interested in their employees' attitudes because attitudes gives warning of potential problems and because they influence behavior. Satisfied and committed employees, for instance, have lower rate of turnover, absenteeism, and withdrawal behavior. They also perform better on the job. Given that managers want to keep resignations and absences down, especially among their most productive employees, they will want to do things that generate positive job attitudes. As one review put it, a sound measurement of overall job attitude is one of the most useful pieces of information an organization can have about its employees. The most important thing managers can do to raise employee satisfaction is focus on the intrinsic parts of the job, such as making the work challenging and interesting. Friends, creating a satisfied workplace and workforce is hardly a guarantee of successful organizational performance, but evidence strongly suggests that whatever managers can do to improve employee attitudes will likely result in heightened organizational performance. I hope you have learned the fundamentals of attitude and job satisfaction in a better way, and you can implement in the organization in a better way. Thank you.